I think we're live. Let's see. Let's see here. I hope you can see me. I know there's a little bit of a delay here between me and the monitor, and but I believe I am coming through. And a big welcome to all of you who are on the live stream. Thank you so much for joining me. And for today's episode of Cichlids and Coffee. Let's see who's getting on here. Let me take a look at the comments. I have a separate monitor. Thank you everybody for jumping on here. I see we've got a good crowd already building up here. Let's see. Chevy Fish, you were number one. If you already have stickers and you don't want any more stickers, that's okay. But if you would like some stickers, send me your email address to ben.o.cichlid@gmail. I'm going to send you some stickers for being number one on the chat. How's that? Let's see. Veronica. Hey, Veronica. Candy, the ever reliable Candy. Perhaps, well, arguably the best moderator on YouTube. Thank you so much, Candy, for being here. We're also expecting, I believe, Kevin. Denny will not be here today. He has to work, and that's a good thing, since a lot of us are not working right now because of circumstances going on in the world. And Jay, hello, Christopher. And let's see, we have some conversations going on already. Hey, Andy H. Tom from Malibu. Hey, Tom. Neptune's Net, I caught your comment last week. Neptune's Net, I'm going to take you up on that. And as soon as all this blows over, maybe I'll get down your way. I hope so. Candy, audio and video are good. That's good news. Big Tank Hank, hey, buddy. And let's see here. All right. So let's go ahead and get underway. Well, first of all, of course, the shout outs, the usual shout outs to all of my friends. And but how about if we do this real quick, just because I think it's so cool. Yeah, I like that. So I want to give a shout out to last week's Super Chats. It looks like we had Wendy. Wendy, thank you, Wendy, for last week's Super Chat. Simon Patel, thank you so much, my friend. Clint's Aqua, thank you so much. And if I missed you, I am sorry. But thank you, everybody, for that Super Chatted last week. For those of you that don't know, Super Chat is your way of throwing a little money at the channel to support the effort, the upgrade of equipment and lights, and ultimately bigger tanks, more fish, and essentially you're an enabler of a addicted individual. I am the addicted individual, you are the enabler. It's a good addiction. So like we do normally, I'm just going to go over a little bit about what's been going on, and boy, what a world, huh? I think for a lot of us, our hobby is really helping us to stay sane. I mean, there's so much weird. It's such a weird situation. The whole thing that's going on with this coronavirus, COVID-19, such a weird scene. But because we're able to do things that we've been wanting to do, whether it's projects or maintenance or things of this nature, it allows us to have a little bit of a pause in all the craziness, and not just the disease, but you hear, if you watch any of the news streams, which I tend to avoid, by the way. I don't really spend a lot of time on news streams, but if you go to social media, you see finger pointing and blame and this and that. It's just like people weaponizing the whole thing into some political thing, and it's just, the whole thing has just become insane and disrupting a lot of lives. And so I think the fish keeping, certainly for me and maybe for you, and certainly comment in the chat if this has been the case for you. For fish keepers, I think the fish keeping has been a bit of a therapy a therapy where we've been able to put our attention on something that has nothing to do with all of the craziness, and it lets us chill out for a little bit and do something that would require us to be at home anyway. So anyway, it's just a crazy scene overall, and I'm really looking forward to having it finally be over. So if you're drinking out of one of these cups, thank you so much. We do have a store now, as you probably know, and I'm sure that Candy will post the store at some point. But there's a store you can go to and get hoodies and shirts and things like that. That's another way you can support the channel. And as I mentioned before, if you're drinking out of a cup, take a picture of yourself in a hoodie or drinking out of a cup in front of your tank. Send it to me. I'll feature it in an upcoming video. And just a way of me saying thank you to you for supporting the channel. So let's take a look at what's been going on here. And by the way, there's the store. I now have a store, so I have this official store on the internet through Teespring. There's the link. It's listed underneath every one of my videos. The more recent ones in the description of the video, but also there is a link provided by Teespring. And let's see here. Let's see if you can see the pop-out chat here. I've got a pop-out chat that I am going to add to the screen here, and let's see if I've made it big enough here. Chevy Fish, Veronica, Kristen Kirby. Yeah, Kristen, gardening is extremely therapeutic. I love gardening. I mean, you get your hands dirty and anyway, my mother-in-law is a big flower person. When she comes down, her and my wife get together, they add flowers to the whole property, and I do the heavy lifting. I bring in the soil bags and that kind of stuff. It's definitely therapeutic. And so yeah, just in general, fish keeping, I've heard just in general, fish keeping is therapeutic. And by that what I mean is does things like lowers blood pressure, reduces some of the stress indicators in the body, which improves immune function, things of that nature. So fish keeping is definitely something good. So let's see here. Oscar Killer. I don't know what to make of that name, Oscar. Oscar Killer. King Ben, good job, brother. Love your video. Thank you, Oscar Killer. Thank you so much. All right, Duke City Aquariums, is Teespring worth it? They're pretty easy to work with. Yeah, Teespring's okay. They keep a chunk, certainly, but they keep me from having to stock inventory. I mean, I probably have to keep 3 of every size. So they're sort of someone orders and they just drop ship. So it's very simple, and they give me a percentage. Just like super chats. The YouTube keeps a piece of that, and so it gives me a percentage. So at any rate, yeah, GoFundMe would probably, Kristen, maybe would be a little bit better, but it's I don't want to go too far in that direction. I understand Aquaballs is on the chat here. Hey Aquaballs, hey buddy, it was nice meeting you over at Nolan's. And Aquaballs is a breeder and also has reptiles, so he is a very interesting individual. So let's see here. So let's take a look at what's been going on, and I had a few videos that were released, and they were primarily on some ideas that I had on how to save money, and things that you can do that can keep a little money in your pocket. This hobby, for some of you, some of you have a lot of money. Some of you are doing well, and it's not an issue for you. For other folks, this hobby can be a bit prohibitive financially. So anyway, I released a video on ways that I suggest that you can do things that that allows you to keep some money in your pocket, but doesn't compromise the quality of your fish care. And that video talks about things like different media options, and not doing too much. Very often we can go overboard in our maintenance and do more. For example, with the hang-on back filters, if you look at your hang-on back filter, it will tell you when it's time to do some work on it. They have these overflow channels, and when those overflow channels start to show water, it means it's time for maintenance. And but some people just jump on them too soon, and so they go through more media. The more you mess with it, the more you're going to wear things out, the more likelihood something's going to go wrong. And so just got to pace yourself, and that in the long. Same thing with canisters. You mess with them too much, taking off the lid, removing the hosing, things of this nature puts additional wear and tear on the O-rings, and ages them faster. So again, there are a variety of tips. I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 tips in there on how you can save a little money and keep it in your pocket. The other video, 5 disasters, was really about just things that I would do that have happened to me, lessons that I learned the hard way, or things I would do different if I was starting over again. And for those of you that know me, I mean, some of you guessed what the biggest one would be. Some of you guessed it correctly, and certainly some of them were very obvious, like getting off of the bucket brigade and starting to use things like hoses, Aquarium or Python hose systems, things like that would allow me to not be stressing my back and carrying buckets all around. Doing it on one tank when I just had the 60. Or before that, when I just had a 30-gallon, I mean, bucket brigade is nothing. I mean, you just do one little. But when you have 4 tanks, and in some cases, to do a proper water change, you have to fill up like 4 or 5 buckets. Let's say for this guy here behind me, 4 or 5 buckets of water, and transfer those waters like to the garden or to the bathroom or whatever, and dump it. That puts a lot of stress on you. And I mentioned in the video how on Monday mornings I would be stiff, and I started to have this sort of passing thought that maybe I can skip a water change because I don't want to hurt my back. And so anyway, the going to that hose system was good for me, and it was good for the fish. It was good for everybody. So at any rate, and then I had another video on just general tank filtration, and just again some tips on filtration, things that I like to do with filtration. Filtration is always a hot topic. I'm always looking at fine tuning and tweaking. I mean, there's a balance between, if it's working, don't mess with it. I get that, and I believe in that. But I'm always, if there's a small adjustment here or there that I can do, that will be better for the fish, I'll try it. And if I like it, I'll share it with you. I'll share with you the folks who watch my videos. And so and that's what that video was about. And they all got a pretty good response. They're all around 4,000, I think, maybe, except for the most recent one. I think they're all about 4,000 or 5,000 in views, and so that's pretty good. So that's what's been going on. And I'll tell you what else has been going on, and this was kind of cool. The channel, the YouTube channel, went over 4 million total views, and again, that's a shout out to you. You folks are awesome. The way you watch the videos, you come to the channel, you support the channel. Interestingly enough, 70% of the viewers are not subscribed. They're just getting on because YouTube has made the recommendation. So those of you who are watching right now who are not subscribed and haven't hit that bell, come on. But at any rate, I'm not complaining. You come over, you watch the video. If you're subscribed or not, that's okay. And but at any rate, we went over 4 million. And so thank you. A toast to all of you. Thank you so much for your help on that. And let's go to 5 million. Let's go to 5 million. Why not? And so that else has been going on. That was exciting. And Now, what we have in the pipeline here, I've got a couple things coming up. I'm going to do I'm going to answer a question that a lot of you have asked me about water changes, in particular, moving the water directly from the tap directly to the tank. I keep asking, I get this question answered over and over again, and so tomorrow, in the video water change tip that you see right here, water change tip, I'm going to go ahead and bring up why why I do it the way I do it, how I do it, and then we'll go from there. And I'll finally have this question answered, so that when I get asked again, I could just give a link to the video. So let's see here. The other one on sump, I have a sump filtration video, and this might be of interest to folks who don't have sumps. You may like it if you don't have a sump, but if you have a sump, I think you are going to like it, because it's something I came up with when I was doing a water change on the sump that allows me to swap out much more of the water, but at the same time, not necessarily overstress the fish. And so it's just a little tip. And for those of you who have a sump, I think you'll like it. For those of you who are contemplating a sump, I think you'll like it. So let's get into today's topic. I want to talk with you a little bit about keeping big fish. Now, if you folks have big fish, go ahead and share it in the chat. I'd like to hear what kind of fish you have, and go ahead and put it in the chat. And there's a few things that you have to keep in mind when you buy some of the fish, like you see in this tank here. This trout right here is that trout could get up over 15 inches, and so he's at that point it's going to force my hand, because he may actually be too big for a tank that's only 6 feet across. I mean, you start to get into turnaround room, you start to get into being able to really accelerate a little bit and swim, and so we're starting to look at either swapping him out, what I call rehoming him, or possibly moving into an 8 to 10 foot tank. So when you're keeping large fish, you're going to get pressed this way. Now, part of what moved me into larger tanks faster was one of the first fish I picked up, and you see these at even the large box, the big box stores, your Petcos, your PetSmarts. They have Venusus, tons of Venusus, and this Venusus I have here, so you can see him somewhere. There he is, right there. This Venusus is I picked up as part of a three for $10 at a local fish store. He was the most spectacular, the most dominant of the three, so I ended up selling the other two, and kept this one. But when you go to let's say you go to a Petco, you buy one of their 20-gallon starter tanks, you see a pretty Venusus, and it's marked giraffe fish, and you go, ooh, a giraffe fish, very, very cool. No real research, just you like the look, the name is intriguing, giraffe fish, okay, I'm going to buy one. And next thing you know, you've got to make some serious choices, because if you're like most fish keepers, you did in the beginning at least, you did your research after you bought the fish, after you noticed that while the other fish are still an inch, the Venusus is now 3 inches. And when he was an inch like the other ones just a couple months ago, now he's 3 inches. So they grow like a weed. And so my first Venusus, I I had an amazing Venusus many years ago. You can see him. You can see him in some of my older videos, and he was a bit of a jerk. He was a bit of a beast, and I had no choice. I had to sell him. So I put him on Craigslist, and someone came by and bought him. Got a great deal on him. Gave me $20, I think, for a 5-inch colored up male Venusus. I mean, it was a beautiful fish, and I had no choice. So when you're buying fish like this, realize that they're going to force your hand in several areas. Whether it's the size of the tank, they're gonna push you into a bigger tank, or force you to rehome them, or or you have to be constantly on top of the mix of what you have, and it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing because it gets you to do some research, it gets you to look into it, and the other thing you have to watch out when keeping these kinds of fish, these larger fish, is the you have to look at the tank mates and how they change over time. For example, for those of you who have been watching my videos on a regular basis, and while I'm talking about them, let me go ahead and feature them on the. We got the little fish cam here. Let's see if they swim into the fish cam here. But at any rate, when the come on guys, you gonna get on the camera or not? So for those of you that follow the channel, looks like they're all staying out of the camera. I can move the camera and see if I can get them. Yeah, there they are. There's a couple of them right there. Okay. Look at that red empress. Oh my God. Oh, there goes the Borley eye. So at any rate, one of the things that you've noticed if you follow my channel is that there are dynamic shifts within the aquarium when you have these large fish. And by that what I mean is this fish that you're seeing right now, that large Venusus, has been challenged, and a couple times, mostly by the eye biter. There was a polystigma that I had about a year ago, and he challenged the Venusus, and it didn't end well for the polystigma. And you notice the polystigma is not around. This Fusco that you see that has just come onto the camera here, he used to look like he was going to challenge, and now he has really settled into the number 3 position and behind the eye biter in the Venusus, and he just minds his own business. He just stays out of their way. So the point I'm making is that when you keep these large fish, realize that you're going to have to be on top of the pecking order and the dynamics of the aquarium, because what's going to happen is there's going to be an ongoing shift. There's going to be a bit of a power shift that goes on a regular basis. And if you're not on top of it, you can come home one day and find that one of your fish has been torn apart. And I work from home now, not because of the COVID-19, but as of January 1st, I've been working from a home office. So I'm able to keep a closer eye on these fish. But the polystigma, I went to work, and then I came back from work, and he was shredded. And it was so by the time I was able to pull him out and put him into a quarantine, a 10-gallon quarantine, he had pretty much gotten to the point where it was almost unrecoverable. It was unrecoverable for him. So another thing that comes with keeping these kinds of fish is the understanding that especially cichlids. Now I'm not talking about, there are large, like discus, for example. Those are pretty large, and they're not as violent. But with these fish, with these particular fish, you are going to get that kind of a situation from time to time. You're going to get violence, and sometimes when the fish recovers, you can put them back in the main tank. And if you've done a shuffling of the decor, if you've moved things around, and you put them in when it's dark, the lights are out, maybe you'll get lucky and he'll move back in. But I've also found that when you have these kinds of fish and one of them has asserted themselves and has selected another fish as one to be taken out or sees that fish as a challenge, chances are when you put that fish back, it's going to pick up where it left off. Now, if you have experience with that, go ahead and share it in the chat, and we'll take a look at that. We'll take a look at what your experience has been with this, because for me, when a fish gets really beaten up or harassed, you put them back in, and very often they just pick up where they left off. It's been very, very rare that I tried it. The last time I tried it, I think, was with the Z-Rock. I have a Z-Rock that's living in the 100 now. Very old fish. I've had him for a good number of years, and he was in the 150 and doing fine. And one day, I'm not sure which fish, I think it might have been the the Placidochromis johnsoni, surprisingly, all of a sudden just became a jerk and just opened up a can of whoop ass on him. And so I ended up having to take him out, and I put him in the 100. Then I tried him, after he recovered from the beating, I tried to put him back in, and it just went right back to the same beating. I don't know what it was about the Z-Rock that was getting this to occur, that was making this happen, but I ended up just leaving the Z-Rock in the 100 where he's been doing fine. So when you're keeping these kinds of fish, also realize that the aggression and the violence can be fast and devastating. Now, I'm not trying to discourage you from keeping large fish. I mean, if you're on top of it and you're keeping the balance back and forth, there's a good chance that you'll be able to have it go, like this tank behind me, you'll have it go for periods of time where it actually runs okay and you're doing all right. So I'm not trying to talk you out of getting large fish. I love having these big beasts, and one of the things I love doing with them, and I'll tell you some of the fun things, I love hand feeding them. When I get some frozen krill or anything, some large some large pellets, and I hold them and I just put my hand in the tank, they will wrap their mouth entirely around my fingers and pull, and they really go after it. And it's actually, for me, that's actually kind of a lot of fun. I have my daughter, one of my kids, sometimes guests will come over and I'll say, here, hold this, and hold it just above, just barely touch the water, and the entire head of the fish will come out and grab that piece of krill. It's a lot of fun, water splashing everywhere, and you can't get that with a little half-inch neon tetra. So it's I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's great that way. It's very rewarding. It's also very, very rewarding to watch a fish go from a half-inch or a 1-inch fry with no color and have him actually evolve into just a large beast. Now, that is the way you can save money, and you can save money by buying between 3 and 5 small fish that are going to become large fish, like trouts, like venusis. I have a gar right now I'm growing out. I have a sand diver right now I'm growing out. I picked up these fish for next to nothing. And if you have the patience and the time and the aquariums to do it with, in my case, I have like 3 stages. I have the grow out tank, the 60-gallon, and then I have the 100, so they graduate to the 100, and then they eventually come here to the 150. So if you have the proper setup and you can do it, you can save a lot of money by growing these fish out, and you get the joy and the excitement of watching a fish go from a drab, gray, small fish and become this large, beautiful, colored up male. The other fish, the subdominants or the ones that you don't want to keep, you can then put on Craigslist, give to a friend, take to the local fish store, and that's one way to get into these larger fish that can save money. Because if you buy these fish, if you just go ahead and pick up a fish, let's say I wanted to buy a fully colored up male Fusco like the one you see there on the screen, or maybe a fish like the trout, if I wanted to buy one of those, if I wanted to pick up one of those fish grown out, you're going to pay probably $50 minimum, $50. You're probably going to have to buy it from a vendor that is not around you. In other words, you're going to have shipping. So, for example, that trout that I have and that eye biter, those fish are in the range of about $100 because I picked them up as colored up males. I became a little frustrated because I was growing some out. Turned out they were females. I had a couple deaths along the way, and so I finally lost my patience, and I went ahead and popped for these males that were already colored up. And that has a lot of joy, a lot of benefit to it too, in that if you have the money and you have the space and you want to go that route, you can start immediately enjoying these large colored up fish right off the bat. And so you have two ways of going. You know, you can grow them out, which can take time. It can take a couple years to get to that fully blossomed, mature fish, or you can go ahead and dish out the big bucks and contact somebody like the Wonder of Cichlids or the Cichlid Shack or someone like that, Live Fish Direct perhaps, or maybe Imperial. These are people I bought from, Imperial Tropicals, Dave's Rare. I mean, you buy from folks like that. You buy a large male, you're going to get a quality fish, no doubt, and but you're going to pay. You're going to pay between $40 and $75 for the fish, and you're going to want overnight shipping that goes to the local, in my case, the Southwest Airlines local, the cargo place for the Southwest Airlines, and you're going to pay $50 for shipping. So again, these are questions you need to ask. I mean, which way do I want to go? Do I want to go with the grow out route and save money and experience the excitement of watching a fish confirm that they're a male by coloring up and going through the process of having to get rid of the subdominants or the other ones, or do you want to just go ahead and go for it and just get the large fully colored up male and start enjoying them immediately? Big benefits. I think there are big benefits going both ways. What do you prefer? What have you done? Talk about it in the chat. Certainly talk about it in the comments after this video posts to YouTube. I'd love to hear what you have to say about that. And at any rate, I enjoy these large fish quite a bit, and I've certainly been pleased with how that Venusus has come around. You can see him there coming into the camera. He is just he's a sort of a benevolent dictator. He runs the tank. He keeps everybody in check. If a couple fish are going at it too strongly, he'll sort of get in the middle like a referee. So when the eye biter was trying to take over, and did take over for about a week, and I was concerned because I knew that eye biter was probably going to be very hard on everybody. And so I was a bit concerned about that hierarchy, and if it would have ended up that way, I may have had to get rid of the eye biter or sell him. Fortunately, the Venusus made a very strong comeback and ended up taking the crown back, and it was about a week. It took about a week, and at any rate, so those are my comments on beasts. I enjoy having these fish. They're all several of them in there are going to be well over 10 inches. Another beast I have in there is the very large pleco that you see right over here, working on that one rock, and that's just your standard pleco. And I've got to figure out what to do about that fish, because at some point, I mean, he'll be too dominant, be too big, too much of a. I might replace him with another pleco, probably sell him, maybe give him away, like people do with plecos sometimes. So at any rate, that's today's topic. What are your thoughts on keeping big fish? Do you keep them? What's been your experience with them? Do you like growing them out? Do you like buying them already colored up and grown out? I'd like to hear what you have to say about that. So definitely share that. So let's get into some of your my favorite part of the live stream. Let's get into today's topic, your questions and comments. And I'm going to start. I'm going to start with some of the comments and questions from last week. And let's see here. And then I'll go into. I'll bring up that chat screen. Maybe we'll look at some of the current questions and comments. Maybe I'll scroll back a little bit. Last week, Sean's Aquarium. If you're on here, Sean's Aquarium asked, how can I speed up my Sun HW 3000 canister filter? You know, the first of all, be sure that your impeller is clean. You just imagine what would slow it down. What would slow it down? Resistance would slow it down. Make sure that your hoses are not longer than they need to be. Be sure that, and these are things, I don't know, these are just tips I'm coming up with from the top of my head. Make sure your hoses are trimmed to the size they need to be. Don't have a lot of extra loops and things that are unnecessary. Be sure your impeller is nice and clean and snapped into place correctly. And also, don't overstuff it with media. I mean, it is the media that is going to create resistance to the water. And also make sure you stay on top of your media. So if you notice that there's a drop off in water pressure, which is one way that you can know that your canister needs to be serviced, is the output. Look at how far that output is pushing water, and if you notice that drops off a bit, you know that you're getting some clogging. So just be sure that you keep your media clean, rinsed in tank water, and provide less resistance to the water moving through that canister. I mean, that would be my tip on that. I mean, if you folks have some tips on how to speed up the water flow, go ahead and share them. It is a system that works off of a siphon. Excuse me, it's a vacuum system. So you have the tank is essentially siphoning into the canister, and then the canister pump is pushing the water back up and through the media. So if you have clean media, if you have hose length that isn't too long, I mean, I imagine if your inputs are clean, let's say you use a filter, a pre-filter that you put over the input, be sure that that's been pulled off each week and rinsed in tank water and put back on so that it's not blocking the flow. And so those would be my tips. Simon Patel. I had a catastrophe a few days ago with my FX6. The motor must have sand in it. I cleaned the impeller and magnetic piece, put it back together, turned on, but no input output. Motor is grinding. Yeah, it definitely sounds like you have some sand in there. It sounds like something's wrong. Be sure that you have the canister filled up with water before you start it. Because sometimes people will have the water level too low in the FX6 and it can't kick over in FX6 or FX5. And also, you have a purge valve. You have a purge valve on the bottom of your FX6. That purge valve, sometimes sand, sediment, can settle in there. So you do your servicing, and then you start it up again, and all of a sudden sand just shifts from there and goes back into your motor. So next time you do a servicing, you can remove that purge valve. There's a little snap on the bottom of it that you can push in, turn it, and take the whole purge valve off, and just backwash and front wash that whole area to be sure that there's no sand in there that has settled and is continuing to slowly go into your motor. So that would be my first guess on what's causing what's causing what you're calling the motor grinding. You have a lot of sand in there that you haven't really fully cleaned out yet, and it's continuing to get in there. And if I had to guess where it's settling, if you've already serviced the body of the canister, chances are it's settling in the purge valve area. And ask me how I know. I mean, I had that happen to me. I had to replace a purge valve because the sand that was settled in there started grinding, and so it wore out the area around the purge valve, and so I had to replace it. It started to leak. Ken Franklin, your videos have been very helpful, and I wanted to thank you. Thank you, Ken. Thank you for watching. I appreciate all of you that support the channel with your views and everything else that you do, so thank you, my friend. Brian Hahn, how often should I service the impeller on the FX6? I do it, I would say, probably once a quarter, so 4 times a year. I'll pull that motor off, you know, and it's a bit of a task, right? I mean, you got to stabilize your canister somewhere so it doesn't roll. You got to use a long Phillips screwdriver and get in there and get those little screws out, and when you put it back together, you got to make sure that the O-rings are in the perfect place, and you know, so it's a bit of a job, but you'll be surprised how gunked up that impeller can get, and that will affect performance. So I would say once a quarter, once every 3 months or so. And there are videos on YouTube that I suggest that you watch that get into the tearing apart of the motor unit, you know, of the pump on the FX6. Take a look at those, get a few tips. Very often, the first time I do something like that, I'll have my phone propped up and I'll be watching the video while I'm doing it. And so I can pause the video and kind of, you know, rewind it and go back, and so I can do that while I'm doing the job, and it really helps me a lot. And I've done that with a couple other things that I do, other hobbies that I'm into. I'll have a video running while I'm doing maintenance on something. Ray Sander, I ordered some 1-inch 45 PPI pour-it foam from Swiss Tropicals. Going to see if it can replace pinky foam. By pinky foam, I'm assuming you mean pinky floss, the thing that comes in the rolls, and I hope it works out. It will work out. It will work out. I actually have just done that, and I haven't mentioned it in any of my videos, but I was running pinky floss at the entry point of the sump, where the water would pour into the first chamber of the sump from the aquarium. I had a layer of pinky floss there. And every week I would pull that out, throw it out, and put a new one in there. Well, what I did now is I have a coarse pour-it sponge there instead, and it's doing a great job catching detritus that comes in there initially, and then below that there's a medium, sponge, and so that catches additional detritus. They're both cut from Swiss Tropicals. And so I just pull them out now, and I rinse them in tank water, and I put them back in. So what that's going to do is, over time, I think it's going to save me some money, because I'm not buying these rolls of pinky floss as frequently. I'm still using pinky floss in my FX6 at the top of the FX6 middle chamber as just a sort of a pre-filter before the water goes down the middle. But so I'm still using pinky floss, but it will work. Those sponges are great. They're very rugged. They're pretty indestructible, and it's going to save you money over time. I am thinking about getting a couple pieces cut and sent to me to use in the cartridges that I use in my hang-on back, my Marineland Duo Bio Wheel filter that I have on my 60. I have the plastic cartridges that you use, the replaceable, you can use the ones that come from Marineland, but I went ahead and just bought plastic ones that I put my own filter media inside. And I'm thinking of just buying some pieces of pour-it and just putting those in there. It will save me money over time. So the nice thing about Swiss Tropicals is they'll custom cut. You send them the measurements. They'll custom cut the piece for you, and then they'll send you the extra. So what was on the outside of the piece that they cut, they send you that as well. And those pieces, you'll be surprised how many places I've found that I can use the extra pour-it sponge. So Swiss Tropicals, they have a good product. Stumpy's fish tanks. Fish tanks, hey. Stumpy's fish tanks, hey. I think hey is part of the name, or he might have been saying hey Ben. I'm not sure. But Ben Ochart and KG Tropicals, the best straightforward videos and streams I've watched. I'm in Jamaica, where there is really no fish community. You guys have helped me a lot. Tracy Ann, my pleasure, and I concur. John was a very, over at KG, was a very big influencer for me when I first switched over to Cichlids. And I've mentioned it before. My wife thought I was crazy. Every time she'd come back from work, I'd be in the living room watching a video with this, this guy John on it, and she's like, "What's going on? What's the deal with this guy?" Anyway, I must have watched 50 of his videos, and when I first got started, so I really, he was really an important part of my initial cichlid introduction. So positioning me with KG Tropicals, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that, and I'm glad you find it helpful, Tracy, all the way from Jamaica. I noticed last week we had folks from Scotland, United Kingdom, Australia, South Africa. We're getting them from everywhere, so I love it. James Livingston, where can I get artificial plants like yours? I think somebody might have provided you with the link, James, if you're on. I get them from Elite Cichlids, and if you contact Elite Cichlids, tell them you want the Ben Ochart discount. I think it's Ben O, or maybe Ben 10. I'm not sure. Just tell them you want the Ben Ochart discount, and they'll give you a discount. Elite Cichlids, they're on Facebook. And G. Lopez, what is the lifespan of the UV light on a Sun canister filter? I've heard that they can go for about a year, depending. Of course, it depends on how much you use them. I use mine on weekends, so I probably get a couple years out of it. But I've heard they go for about a year. So you'll know because you'll hit the button one day and you'll have nothing. So you may want to have another one, in stock, around. And I use them on weekends, so I get a much longer lifespan. But I would say about a year would be my guess. But light bulbs. I mean, how many of you have bought those LED light bulbs, or those new light bulbs on the box? It says 12 years, 10 years, guaranteed 10 years. 18 months later, it burns out. What are you going to do? You're going to go send the bulb to the company, and anyway. So who knows? Your guess is as good as mine, but I think they're supposed to last about a year. Soy Ski, how big since that eye biter started showing his colors? I have a 5 to 6 inch, still shiny silver. The reason I bought this eye biter, Soy Ski, already colored up. So, and he was about 7 inches when I got him. You should have some signs of color, or at least some markings, like a dark marking on the. You can see him here over my shoulder here. You should have some markings showing up already, and let's see if I can get him on the fish cam here. He's not going to cooperate and go on camera. He's being camera shy. So anyway, he's behind me. There he is right there. Hey, buddy. You see that orange and black on the anal fin? The orange and black on the anal fin? You should be seeing some of that already. And the reason I went with an adult colored up male is I went through three eye biters. You can see them in my old videos, and it took forever. And I finally gave up and said, okay, that's it. And I contacted, and it turned out that James Largo over at the Cichlid Shack had this beast, and he sent me a video. I fell in love, and the rest is history. So I gave up and got a colored up male. But I think that by now you should already have some signs of color, and if you but they are notorious for taking a long time. I mean, some fish are like that. Bucochromis notitania. I mean, I'm being strung along by one right now in the tank behind me. That may be a female, and so I may end up buying a colored up notitania. James Largo, if you're on the stream and you heard me, Send me a video of a Buccochromis notitania. I might end up getting a colored up male because they just take forever. They're one of those fish that are notorious for taking a long time to color up. I have an orange flametail in the 100 that I am dying to have color up. I've had him for about a year now. It's definitely a male, has a long pointed anal fin, a long, nice pointed dorsal. It's definitely a male, but it's not. It's still not showing any signs. So some fish are just like that, and you've got to be patient. So if you have the patience, then hang in there. But I would give him another. I'd give him another inch. You know, let him put on a little more size. Be sure that he's not being heavily harassed, because if he's being heavily harassed, that can also inhibit coloring up. A good example of that is the living stoning in the tank behind me. That tank, that fish was a beautiful blue-green, kind of a smooth color in the 100, where he was, you know, the cock of the walk. I mean, he was the big deal in the 100. I put him in this tank, and he lost all his color immediately. And so, if he had been in this tank all along, I'd have the same kind of questions. I'd be, well, boy, is that a male? Is it really a male? Is it? But it's just that he's not coloring up as a defense mechanism, because he doesn't want to get on the radar of somebody like the large Venusus or the eye biter. He wants to stay off their radar, and not, you know, or even the Fusco. He doesn't want to be a threat to those fish. So it's hard to say. If you have another tank that you can put him in where he would be more the dominant fish, maybe he'll color up there, and then you'll know for sure. That's one test that you could possibly do to see if it's just that he's being subdominant. Okay, so let's take a look at some of your current comments. Let's see here. Robert Johnson, my Venusus took 5 inches to show color. After removing him from my main tank, he colored up within 2 weeks being alone. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was talking about, Robert. Sometimes you take them out of a tank where they're being, you know, they're just afraid. It's just a defense mechanism. Look, I'm not a threat. I'm not trying to look attractive to any females in here. I'm just, you know, I might even be a female. So it's their way of saying, hey, you know, I'm okay. So let's see here. And GP, hey GP, African cichlids will color up if your pH is correct. Yeah, that's one of the factors. Of course, you know, your water conditions, your water, you know, is your pH right? How's the temp? You know, are you running high nitrates? Is there maybe a little bit of trace ammonia in there? If you have something, is the food good quality? All these are factors in the coloring up of your fish, and all of them can have, they can all play a role in whether your fish are going to color up. Cunningham Cichlids, what's up, James? Hey Josh, how are you, buddy? Cunningham Cichlids is also a great source for quality fish. He is all in. He has a huge fish room. He posts videos from time to time to give you a tour of the fish room. I picked up a beautiful Exochromis angenis that is in my 100, a very rare fish. I picked him up from Cunningham Cichlids. So check him out if you haven't already. And hey, Paul, Inventory King is in the house. Chevy Fish, I'm going to be doing a Breeders Award Points project. I prefer to sub-adult or breeder pair to get, there you go. Chevy Fish, I'd like to get more into breeding myself. Breeding is awesome. Now that's a heck of a way to grow them out. Hey, James is in the house. Hello, James. Two master breeders and fish providers, Cichlid Shack and Cunningham Cichlids, both in the house. Check them both out, folks. They have quality fish. Kristen, I know they're not technically big. Well, all right. A big female. You know, I think is in guppies. I'm not that familiar with guppies. Are the females usually the larger? Are they much larger than the male usually? I know with some species that's the case. Tom, is this Tom over in Malibu? Just picked up some poured filter foams from Swiss Tropicals. Yeah, the good quality, really good quality stuff. It will last. It'll last you forever. You'll probably never have to replace it. You'll just simply have to take it out and rinse it from time to time, usually in tank water, just to preserve some of the beneficial bacteria. Because one of the things that Swiss Tropicals points out or stresses is that their sponges are a great home for beneficial bacteria. I know that half man, half cichlid, I believe that a major part of his beneficial bacteria in his enormous sump system is porate filters. That's what he has. He has just stacked porate filters. And let's see here. Candy. Taylor Richard, I've noticed pH definitely makes a difference with frontosa coloration. So yeah, again, I mean, we're looking at water parameters. If you can put that fish in a more ideal situation, their stress level is going to come down. They're going to have to be. They're not going to have to work as hard to stay healthy. I mean, something as simple as is there enough oxygen in your water? If they're stressing to breathe a little bit, yeah, they're going to be struggling, and that could color. So there's different factors, oxygen, water parameters, quality food, tank mates, all these things affect the coloration of your fish. I have a video tips, the tips on getting optimum or beautiful fish or beautiful amazing color, how to get amazing color. I forget the name of it, but I have a video. You can see it at my channel, and it talks about how to get the most color, and all those factors come into play. All of that is part of it. So if you have any questions, go ahead and give them to me now on the chat, and I will go ahead and answer a few more before we wrap up here. Let's see here. Weestrom Kogai. Hey, Weestrom. Hey, Aquaballs, you still here? I'm glad you're here. And Chevy fish, live bears, females are usually larger. Very, very cool. Yeah, I had live, when I first started, like so many fish keepers, I'm talking 60 years ago, with my first tank. I had live bears, right? Swordtails, mollies, platies, and I thought they were very, very cute. And yeah, again, the females were larger. Very, very good. So I want to thank all of you who are on this live stream. I want to thank anyone who's, if I missed you and you did a super chat, I'm sorry I missed you. I wasn't looking at the chat during the stream because I wanted to, it can be a bit distracting, so I was just looking at you during the stream. But if you did a super chat and I missed you, I'm sorry. I'll catch you next week for sure. And I want to encourage all of you on today to visit the Facebook group. This group here, this Ben O Cichlid group. It's growing. It's going to be up over 7,000 members pretty soon, and it provides a lot of help, advice, tips. There's some good fish keepers there that will share ideas with you. No question is a stupid question, and anyone who jumps on anybody that is asking a question, like a beginner can ask something that to an advanced person who has a bad attitude, they might want to jump on someone like that. That's not allowed. So it's a friendly group, and so come on over if you'd like to the Ben O Cichlid group. Also, you can follow me on Instagram at ben.o.cichlid. And if you're still on the stream, thank you so much. Be sure to hit that bell, hit that sub. Be sure to sub and hit the bell so you get notifications. And I will see you next Saturday. Stay safe, and let's all hope we all get back to normal soon. because I think we all probably have a little bit of cabin fever, and we're all ready to get back out and get back into our lives. So I hope this blows over quickly, and I hope we're back to normal soon. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to my wonderful moderators and all of you on the stream who've lasted with me this long. You rock, my friends. I really mean that. Bye-bye.